And we're live and not for the intro. There we go. Sorry, I trying to cut the intro earlier and I clicked the wrong button again. My entire setup, I don't know what it was. I hooked up a second monitor today, and so all my sizes have just been sifted, and nothing looks right now. It's my OCD and autism is just like spitting out right now all over this.
Oh, I hate that. I'll change something little in one of my streams just because I'm being a perfectionist, and it'll mess everything else up, and then it'll drive me nuts.
I hate it. I need to just get it one way and never touch it again. Just leave it be.
Yeah, that's what I've done. I have like 3 separate screens I just don't touch, and then like a backup one, and then like that's it. Because otherwise, I'm a boomer with technology. I mess everything up. So
Same. Like nothing makes me like angry and it's disassociated as much as like technology. One thing goes wrong, I'm like, okay, nope, I'm gonna go move to the woods. I'm done.
That's how I am too.
Nice. So how you doing? You doing good?
Dude, doing great. Thanks for having me on. Finally, I had caught the coof, so I know you're supposed to do this earlier. So glad we're finally getting to do it. Though that's my fault, not yours, of course.
It's all good. Look, I needed to get a woman on the show because apparently my mom doesn't watch the show, but she scrolls through the script and says, "Hey, Caleb, you've never had a woman on the show." I have, but they never went to thumbnail, and so she didn't. Oh. So I gotta make sure you're front center on the thumbnail, so I don't get pestered at Thanksgiving.
Gotcha. I'll save your Thanksgiving there.
Thank you. I really, be honest, I forgot we were doing the podcast to about 1 o'clock today.
Yeah.
And so my notes for the questions are basically made up. Right when I sat down and get ready for this, I made up the notes. So I got nothing really detailed to go over, but gatekeeping. Yeah. Define gatekeeping if you can for people who don't know what it is.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different definitions. Mine personally, and honestly, I think this is probably just the true definition, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. It's basically, if we're using hobbies as an example, it's when you basically just lay the ground rules, and then just hold people to some sort of standard. That's my definition of gatekeeping. A lot of people say, oh, it's when you're like hazing people and you're just bullying them. And to me, though, that can be fun sometimes. That's not what gatekeeping is. Gatekeeping is just holding people to a standard and keeping that standard and not letting anyone, regardless of who they are and what they say they think, slip through the cracks there. And to me, gatekeeping is important. I know it's kind of tricky because it has a negative connotation, but I think there's a reason for that. It's because the people, to me, that complain about gatekeeping are usually the ones that need to be gate kept. So to me, that's why I still use the term. People are like, well, it has a negative connotation. Why don't you pick something else? Because I think just using the term gatekeeping itself gatekeeps a lot of people, because the people that start complaining and saying, oh, well, you're pushing me out, usually those are the people that need to stay away anyway. Absolutely. So yeah.
That makes sense. No, like, I first found out about gatekeeping from like the comic book and that kind of nerdy stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what was it? I want to say it was Tumblr or can't remember when it was. Like some anime or something I was a part of. It's a big discussion about gatekeeping. It was Percy Jackson books.
Oh, interesting.
There was a discussion about gatekeeping. It's like with Percy Jackson fandom, so we include the people who like the Egyptian books, because the Rick Riordan thing, so we focus on book by book. And I didn't pay attention because I was like 14. I didn't care.
Right.
I didn't understand they were like in groups and shit. But it ended up like the entire group. Percy Jackson group is very weird because it's all a bunch of. It's like the Harry Potter group.
Gotcha.
But not as like politically aware. But still is far lefty.
Yeah.
So they're all like trans, everything that they're all that, but they're not. They don't make comparisons to Hillary Clinton, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. But, that's crazy. I didn't realize that there was a whole. I think. I'm pretty sure I've read at least a few of those books. I remember really liking them and that they were super, super popular for a long time. So,
but he also still puts out books. I mean, they just wrapped up the third.
Oh, okay.
They just wrapped up the third series of Percy Jackson. And they kind of grown with the audience. They start like brutally murdering characters.
Oh,
yeah, like one of the characters.
Oh, man.
guard the door and gets just thrown to the ground and stabbed in the back with a spear.
Oh.
And they kids have PTSD and depressive from it, so they kind of matured with the audience.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
kind of cool though. So it's not still like you're an adult reading like young adult
kids
fiction.
book, yeah.
It's like
they're still kiddie, but they're not the teenager book. They're not like adult
Gotcha.
books. They're like perfect young adult. Like teens can read it and feel edgy, and young adults can read it and not feel like they're reading Shakespeare or something. It's just mellow.
Nice.
So it's fun. But yeah, gatekeeping. So how do you? I get gatekeeping in a sense of like nerdy fandoms, but how does this apply to like political parties when most people view political parties as we need to get more people because of democracy?
Right. So I think that's why I talk about gatekeeping so much. Because obviously, I mean, for those that don't know, I do costuming, I'm into cosplay and anime and things like that. So there's been discussions of gatekeeping from everything from books, like you were talking about, to comics to anime. Gatekeeping has always been basically a topic, even when I was a kid. Obviously, we didn't really know what was going on back then, but it has always been a thing because people want to keep their fandoms the way that they like them. And when it comes to politics, for me, I first started talking about it because I noticed basically what prompted me is I was starting to notice that I was personally moving out of my what I affectionately call my Lulbert phase. And as I moved out of that and started associating with people like the Mises Institute crew and those guys, and just more right wing people in general, not even necessarily libertarians, more conservative people, I started to notice that people weren't progressing with me. Like a bunch of my friends that I made at the time, they were still saying the same talking points, like the live and let live stuff, and we're half Republican, half Democrat, that
You're
sort of
basically
thing.
describing my friend Jacob, who we both somewhat know from Twitter,
Yeah.
Biblical Anarchy. He's also, everyone listen, he's doing a stream right now with Adam Patrick, which I
Oh,
am
cool.
jealous because like right now he's live at 7 with Adam. I'm live with you at 7, and Pete's doing the live reading at 7. I'm like, there's so much good
Oh,
shit
wow.
right
We're
now.
we're packed tonight. There's gonna be a lot of rewatches.
Yeah, he's a great dude, but he very much falls into that. Jared from End Democracy wanted me to ask you about the "we're not left, we're not right" platitude. He wanted me to ask you about that.
Oh,
So what do you?
yeah. So this it kind of goes with what I was saying about like the live and let live stuff and me progressing myself. I was definitely one of those people, and I'll freely admit this. Like I have developed a lot over the past 5 years. I know people joke, "Oh, you go from minarchist to ANCAP in like 6 months, and then it's like right wing." You just accelerate from there. It took me years, and I think part of it is because I'm a woman. And I don't mean that in like a "ooh, people are sexist" way. I mean that in, especially online, a lot of times people don't want to challenge you on things, especially if you're a minority of any kind in the group that they're in. So not just women, like any kind of minority in libertarianism, I have noticed if they say something wrong, or if I was saying some platitude like, "Oh, I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal," or something like that, most of the time no one's going to push me on it.
Yeah.
And I think this is how I ended up in more right-wing circles, is because right-wing people were the people that were pushing me on it. They were the ones saying, "You don't know what you're talking about. You should really read these books. Have you got and look into the Mises Institute? You should go to Mises University over the summer. I'm going. It's more right-wing people." And they were the ones that were calling me out and saying, "You don't know what you're talking about." And I am very stubborn. I'm a stubborn person. I always have been. But I also don't like to look stupid. Nobody likes to look stupid. And it got to the point where
I don't think that anymore. There's too many examples. I don't think that anymore.
uh I'm definitely, I think, more humble than I was a couple years ago. Like I'll freely admit that. I think it's not just that I was incorrect about these things. I was like, not only was I wildly incorrect, but I was wildly confident in my incorrectness on this.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing, but I think it's good to admit that because I think it helps other people that might be coming from the area. Like I have friends who are super right wing who are neocons. Like who wants to admit that they were a neocon? Nobody. Who wants to admit that they were one of those people being like, "Oh, I want gay people to hold guns and defend their marijuana plants"? Nobody wants to admit they were one of those people. That's the kind of posts I would share. And I always
I
said,
still say those, but only on Facebook. This depends on my boom like aunts and uncles. Like my
just to
Facebook is pure
get it
troll at
out
this point.
there. Just getting it out there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
I to go with the right and the left thing, I was definitely one of those people who was saying things like, I'm not right wing or left wing. Or, and this is honestly a super recent development, probably in the last year and a half, probably 2 years ago, I understood that I was definitely a right winger just philosophically and from an ideological perspective, but I didn't want to say it. And I think I'm going to make a video on this as well because I think it's important. I think beyond just not understanding things, even once you understand that you are, you're anti egalitarian, you are a right winger essentially. I think a big reason why I myself didn't want to call myself that and clung to I'm half left wing, half right wing. I have
Mm.
friends all over the place. I'm not really either. I clung to that because I really like dunking on people at Twitter at the time, quite honestly. And an
Mm.
easy way to do that, and I think a lot of libertarians, we have a stubborn streak in us. We have kind of a, like we think we're so punk and we like to just piss off everybody on all sides. And I still do, don't get me wrong. But uh that's why I didn't want to call myself right wing, because when a leftist or somebody I was trying to dunk on Twitter would come after me, I could say, "Oh, I'm not a right winger. Nice try. I'm a libertarian,"
Mm.
or, "Oh, nice try. I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal. I'm like both of you and I'm better than you," and things like this. And as funny as it is, and I fully understand why, there are some really good people that I know personally that have much bigger platforms than I am that still refuse to call themselves right wing. And I just don't find it valuable anymore, especially in today's climate with
Yeah.
what we're dealing with, what we've been dealing with over the past 2 years. I don't even want to be accidentally associated with left wing people. I just don't.
Yeah.
Um, for any reason whatsoever. And I think they're vastly different and it's very obvious. And how anybody, I talked about this on a live stream once. I saw this tweet that was like, I can't decide as a libertarian whether I'd want to live in a
Hannah
red
Cox.
a red state or a blue state. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's so cringe.
I'm not trying to like personally attack or dunk on anybody, but that is a really good example. And I know obviously Republican and Democrat does not necessarily fit the right wing, left wing thing. But libertarians will do that as well. Oh, I'm half right wing, half left wing. I'm half Republican, half Democrat. And they do it because they liked to have this false moral high ground. Especially I think people like to have it over the left because they tend to be the craziest, the most zealous, the ones that are going to come after you. And I mean, I've been doxxed. I got doxxed by Antifa when I was a baby Lolbert in 2016.
Mm.
And that was before, if I would get doxxed now, I obviously don't want to be. I would at least kind of understand because I have more quote unquote controversial opinions now. I was rolling around free speech balls with Young Americans for Liberty when I got doxxed. Like the most inoffensive, everyone can agree with. So I thought. I learned very quickly. Actually, that is really offensive to some people. And I just decided from then on, I just slowly began my journey into talking about, well, first of all, what's the difference between right wing and left wing? How do I know that I'm actually right wing? And like, what is the point of calling myself right wing? And it's because I don't want to be associated with egalitarians. And I
Yeah.
harp on this so much to the point people on my channel like make fun of me. They're like, stop talking about egalitarianism. I'm like,
No.
I'm not, because when it gets down to it, that's one of the biggest ways. Even like, let's say I said Republicans aren't necessarily always right wing. How do you tell? You look at their policies and the way they talk and the
Mhm.
things they say and the things they support. And if they are for egalitarianism and that sort of thing, they're clearly not a right winger. 9 times out of 10, they're a neoconservative, like just point
Absolutely.
blank. And Jared's been helping me with hopin.org. He sent me a lot of sources. I think I'm going to make a video explaining the neoconservative divide in the Republican Party, because I think, and this is why it bothers me so much when libertarians cling to the I'm half Democrat, half Republican thing. I think it bothers me because most of the time, those Republicans that you don't agree with, that you're criticizing, are the neocons. They are
Yeah.
not even right wingers. So you
It's either
say,
neocons or tradcons. Those are the people you're
exactly.
disagreeing with.
You say, oh, I don't agree with right wing people all the time. But when you get down to it, those people that you're disagreeing with that have an R next to their name aren't even right wingers.
Mm-hmm.
They're left wingers. So you're still just completely, and that's where I came to my personal decision as I realized I still, obviously, there are a lot of conservatives that need to grow a spine, and I will criticize them, and I am not afraid to do so. But I still consider them, for all their faults, they're greater allies to me than anybody that's calling themselves a Democrat or left wing or an egalitarian, or a lot of people in the Libertarian Party that are proudly left wing and they proudly associate with a lot of left wing people, a lot of left wing anarchists, even. Um, I saw that, I can't remember who tweeted it out, but somebody had a really good tweet a couple months ago. I can't remember his Twitter name, but he tweeted out and said, "Hey guys, remember when ANCAPs thought that we could ally with ANCOMs? Haha, that was so funny." And it's funny and it is a joke, but it's actually unironically true. There are a lot of people that if you just claim to be anti-state, they'll ally with you. They don't care if you're trying to destroy culture or any of that.
Mike Cohen allied with Black Lives Matter. They
Yeah.
got an endorsement that they rescinded recently.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah, and I mean, am I saying we can never work with people, especially locally? Like if you have somebody locally that is they're trying to push something that you really believe in, that's fine. And obviously I don't agree with every Republican that I consider a good Republican locally over the past 2 years with everything that's been going on. I don't agree with everything they've done. So that doesn't mean I can't ally with them. But for me personally, it's more than political stuff. It's also the cultural stuff. And that's really what got me into Hoppa and, the dreaded late Rothbard. Oh no. Oh, the dude,
I think it's
you know.
I don't know where it went. Wait, yeah, it's over there. Right next to Egalitarians voted against Nate's, it was the irrepressible Rothbard. So I got the two best Rothbard sayings.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, that one's it's so good. And it was all, I don't want to say downhill, it was uphill from there. Once I started reading, I read Anatomy of the State, then I got involved with a lot of the Mises people and started reading Lou Rockwell and all those guys, and that really got me to understand what is actually left wing and right wing and why that's important, and why and who you ally with is important. Because to me, and I think this is another big problem, and why people like to have that false moral high ground, especially in the social media sphere. We call it Liberty Twitter, whatever. It's like we have this micro celebrity problem. Like I'm under no illusions that I am like some like I got banned from Twitter. I was off Twitter for 8 months. Like in the grand scheme of things, a lot of people miss me, but most people don't know who I am. Like that's so cringy. Like I'm just a person who talks about things, goes on podcasts occasionally, and it's great and it's fun. And I've made a lot of really good friends online doing it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But people like to feel important. And I think if someone is able to criticize you, a lot of the times for being left wing or right wing, it makes people feel stupid, and it feels like an attack on your micro celebrity almost. Like, what do you mean I don't know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And people like to go back and forth and dunk on each other. But at the end of the day, it's important because I'm not trying to get Twitter famous. Like I'm trying to actually, and I think over the past years, libertarians, a lot of them are finally coming this way and realizing this isn't just about the internet. Like there are real local things that people can do. And that's why there's such a heated argument between, the LPers and the GOPers. And as annoying as it is, I think it's necessary to have those arguments on strategy and things like this. And people like Tho Bishop and Pop Liberty and all those guys,
The best.
they're doing good work. And I know it pisses a lot of people off, and even Matt Erickson to a certain extent, when I returned to Twitter, one of the first things I encountered was the "you guys need to build power and influence" thing. And I saw how angry that made libertarians. And legitimately, my brain nearly exploded because I couldn't understand why that was so offensive. On its face, I understood, But I thought, guys, just think about it for a second. If you're more respected in your community, people are going to listen to you.
Yeah.
It works the same way online. If you're like traveling around and you're doing all these shows and everything, and people start to like you and they're listening to what you're saying, you're gonna gain respect even in an online community. It works the same way in real life. So I like what all those guys are doing. And even if I don't agree with everything all of them say, I find myself agreeing with most of it. But I do disagree with people on culture and like religion and some of that stuff. Um, I think it's necessary to have those arguments because this isn't just like a joke. I know there's a joke, oh, we all have podcasts and we're not doing anything. No, I think conversations are very necessary because I think a lot of people are just waiting for someone to take the lead on where to go and they'll follow. Like not everybody is going to be, I know we all joke, oh, Tho Bishop Republican. Not everybody's going to be that. Not everybody has the opportunity to do that and has the capital in libertarian circles that he has to do that, for example. So we need good people like that. And I think we have to have conversations. We have to know before we do any of that, though, what we actually stand for. And we can't be wishy-washy. And when somebody asks me, when my in-laws that were Fox News Republicans and are now after this election telling me they don't like democracy, which is insane.
Yeah.
I can't say to them, oh, well, we just want everybody to live and let live. And I'm not really allied with you guys or the left. I'm just kind of like, what are you? No one's going to listen to you if you're wishy-washy and you're just spewing platitudes that don't really mean anything to anybody. That doesn't mean anything. What means something is what Tom Woods has been doing. I'm against mandates. Here's the data. Here's what libertarians can do about it. And here's literal charts of things. This is what you can do in your local community to stand up against these people. That's what people care about. They don't care about t-shirts and platitudes online or anything like that. And so that's why I think the right wing.
I feel called out. Right the moment I got into
Listen, I'm wearing a t-shirt, okay? Like
I'm making sell t-shirts. I'm working on the website, and the first t-shirt I made, I'm not gonna sell because it's so cringe. But I thought it was cool when I got it. Was democracy is cringe, which I still like, but the back of it says "Weed Wasp Board." Like that's gonna solve everything. Maybe if I added "Weed 90s Wasp Board," I'll still sell it. But right now, I'm just gonna retire that one.
The thing that that always made me laugh, especially when I started actually reading Rothbard, is I thought it was funny. So my husband is not like, he's not really tuned into all this. He kind of knows vaguely who people are because I'll talk to him about things that are happening on Twitter. And I started talking about the late Rothbard, fiasco and how so many people get angry. And he looks at me and he goes, so you're telling me that there are people that think that later in his life he was wrong, and earlier in his early writings he was more correct? He goes, that doesn't make any sense. Don't people generally get smarter the more they go along and the more they theorize? And I go, yeah, you would think so, but people don't understand that. So
now that you mentioned he's not involved, all I'm picturing is the he walks in like, "Are you winning, honey?
Are you winning?" And I'm like typing away, like, "Yeah, I'm debating this person."
That's all I can picture now is this. I gotta ask you real quick. So I have no idea what Evangelion, whatever it's called, or how do you say it? Oskuka, or whatever it is.
Asuka, yeah.
I say, like, I'm into anime. I like anime.
Yeah.
Fullmetal Brotherhood is the best thing ever made. I know nothing about it besides the one meme from a hospital.
Yeah.
Did I watch?
Yeah, and that's like the worst one to know too. It's like the most weird
one.
Should
I watch it, or should I just ignore it?
It's the best way I could describe it, as the kids say on the internet now, it's very esoteric. Like, I think a lot of people
never figured out what that word meant.
It's like people act like it's really big brained, but I just watched it for like the giant Avas, like the robots, and because the girls are cute. Like, I'm definitely not a person that watches anime for like the themes, and like people ask me all the time, like, "Oh, are you watching that anime because it's libertarian?" And I'm like, "No, I'm trying to turn my brain off and watch cute anime girls. What are you talking about?"
Libertarian anime? I need to. I don't even want to know. Actually, no.
You don't want to know.
Whatever fandom I'm a part of, I tell them to gatekeep libertarians out.
Yeah. If someone's calling themselves, and that's the thing, people are like, "Well, you call yourself a libertarian. Doesn't it make you mad when like paleocons and like right wingers say libertarians are dumb?" And I go, No. Have you talked to most libertarians? No. Like we don't agree with each other. Why would I be surprised that people who definitely don't even necessarily agree with us on anything also think that we shouldn't be listened to? Like, no, I don't care. And a lot of my friends still still say, oh, Nick.
Jeremiah, right?
A lot of my friends are still like, yeah, I'm not calling myself libertarian. Like they are. And actually, I just had a guy on Twitter who's an anime guy. AGcast is his @ shout out to him on Twitter. He just started following me a few weeks ago, and he said, listen, I called myself an ANCAP in college and I still kind of believe it, but and we were just talking about this earlier today on Twitter. He's like, I'm not calling myself libertarian. He goes, what are you? I like what you are. And I said, well, I'm Hoppian if like we want to get down to it. And he goes, I'm going to call myself that. And I'm like, oh my God, I have these anime profile picture friends that are just like, I like that. But like
The anime Hoppians are real.
Anime Hoppians rise up. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I thought that was funny.
That's
Yeah.
we got into disagreement on Twitter earlier. Was this perfect timing for the episode tonight? Was like, should we
Yeah.
drop the word libertarian or not?
Yeah.
You don't want to drop it. I'm ready just to fucking leave it behind. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
But what do you why do you think we should keep it?
I mean, honestly, I completely get where you're coming from. Actually, the reason why I have ANCAP in my bio on Twitter and across my website and my social media and not just libertarian is for that reason. Like, I do get wanting to distinguish yourself from like the run of the mill, like you said, Cato reason type, like think tank regime libertarians. Like, I don't want to be associated with those people either, but I'm also super stubborn. And I think I'm to the point where, and this kind of goes back to gatekeeping. I have already seen, I'm not going to call anyone out, but I have already seen people calling themselves Hoppians who I look at their timeline and I'm like, no, what? And I like literally block them. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's like the new rage now a little bit in this like little niche of libertarian Twitter.
Yeah.
So I'm already seeing like different terms being subverted. Like a lot of people who are anarcho-capitalists, I used to joke in like 3 months, I would know these people as ANCAPs back when I was in Young Americans for Liberty. And I would watch them turn into ANCOMs in real time. And I always thought, how do you go from that to that? That makes no sense. But it's because these terms get subverted and then nobody gatekeeps because there's this, in my opinion, terrible strategy in libertarians, which is we need to cast the widest net possible.
Yeah.
And get everyone in. And it's like, no one ever, there will never be a society where everyone is an anarcho-capitalist libertarian. That's not going to happen. There will always be people who disagree on things, but that doesn't mean that you can't, like I said, be a leader in your community and lead the people that don't necessarily get it to something like that. And eventually they'll see, okay, it works. This is practical. We have real solutions. I'm going to follow this person. I don't know what that silly term is and all those books that they're reading. But like the guy I just said on Twitter, I know he has not read Hans Hermann Hoppe. I'm almost positive. But he said, I don't want to call myself an ANCAP or a libertarian, but I like what you are. So what's the term I should be using? That we need more of that. And the only way we're going to do that is if we actually start gatekeeping and say, no, I'm done ceding ground to you people. And that's why I'll use the term libertarian still. I just say, yes, I'm a libertarian. Yes, I'm a Hoppian. Yes, I'm an ANCAP, like whatever you want to call me. Because I think just setting an example for people, like if I'm still calling myself a libertarian and people are looking at me and saying, hey, wait a minute, I thought you guys are supposed to be lol cows on the internet. Like you're actually not too bad. Then their wheels start turning like, okay, well, maybe I should look into this a little bit more. And I think that's important still.
Yeah.
So
I think it really, I guess it kind of depends on what crowd you're working with, you know? Like if I decided recently I'm going to start getting more into the Catholic crowd. I'm not putting libertarian in my bio. I'm going to move that.
Yeah. The Tradcaths definitely won't like that.
Tradcons are the fucking worst. Yeah. I got into it today with that classical conservative dude again, and I need to block him. Every few weeks I'm going at it with him again. I'm like, I just gotta block it and stop the cycle. I said it today when I said again, first I'm saying the podcast. Tradcons and progressives are the same side of the Puritanian coin. They both love mandates. They both love public schools. I mean, Michael Knowles and Sir Albemarle literally said, we're not against mandates for vaccines. We're just against this because this vaccine's untested. Like, they're literally the same thing as they're progressive. They just have a trad aesthetic. That's the only thing it is. They're just salty aren't stars anymore. They're both Puritans. It's just they're the same thing.
Yeah, and I've had people as like try to like dunk on me, be like, yeah, she thinks she's so trad. And I'm like, I wear skin tight bodysuits. I know I'm not trad.
Yeah,
Like I cosplay. I know I'm not an average traditional LARPer online, because let's be real, a lot of them are just LARPers online, and I know about LARPing, okay? I know it when I see it. But I mean, there are some good trad cons online that I think are coming our way. But yeah, a lot of it is very cringy. Really a lot of LARPing. It's like, and I mean, libertarians do it too. Like we just talked about, like they're only in the online space and they only care about like their micro celebrity. And I think a lot of trad cons are like that too. They're just like, everyone knows who I am, and like those libertarians are cringy, and like I'm big in my. It's like what they say, a big fish in a small pond kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's like you're not going to convince anybody, and people like your average person, they're going to look at a trad con and look at a crazy progressive if they're both, you know, supporting mandates, and they're going to say, they're going to do the Lulbert thing. They're going to go, well, what's the difference between these people? But maybe there actually isn't a difference between them when you look at them philosophically. So that'll be interesting watching you get into those circles and kind of seeing like what's going on and things.
Yeah,
like
I'm trying to plus up on my Catholic stuff. I might be getting Trent Horn, my favorite Catholic, on the podcast.
Oh, cool! Very cool.
His book, Why We're Catholic, is why I'm Catholic now, and so I'm really looking forward to that one.
Did you convert from something like?
Yeah, I was Pentecostal.
Oh, okay, very cool. Yeah, I'm Lutheran, so
nice.
I
have a few friends who are Lutheran, good people,
and not the evangelical Lutherans, not the crazy ones. I have a Catholic friend that makes fun of me all the time. She'll send me articles. Every time there's a crazy Lutheran, like a woman pastor or gay pastor or something like that, or something really cringy that was said, it's always the evangelical Lutherans, and I'm like, none of us more conservative Lutherans even consider them Lutheran. Leave me alone, okay? I know, Protestant moment, but like, it's not me, okay?
There's this great video of a Lutheran pastor at the pulpit preaching about what we can learn from the gay people who are dying unto self, and then why is he saying that? The power goes out and the mic's cut, everything comes back on, and people just start walking out of the room.
Yeah, I would leave.
It's like he's out. It's like he pauses, like, we're gonna take a break. Like he's like, maybe I'm off base here. Like, it's a really great video, but it's
I'll have to find that. Maybe that sounds hilarious. Yeah, they're always the crazy people. So I have a lot of Catholic friends online, so which I don't mind, and I think especially in the modern day, there's not really though I did see there's a lot of Lutherans, and it really doesn't make any sense. And they're allegedly not the evangelical Lutherans, but they just really hate Mary. And I'm like, that's stupid. Like, Luther has writings about how much we should revere Mary. Like, that's not even a legitimate disagreement between the denominations there. Like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Luther and Calvin were both kick people out at Sarah for not respecting Mary.
Yeah, like, it makes no sense.
It's so weird to me. Like, again, the Marian doctrines are already like in and of themselves a little peculiar to most Christians and most Western cultures. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like the history there doesn't make sense to me.
It's weird. I don't, and I've started, anytime I see a dumb opinion online, I have come to the conclusion that honestly, and I have some really good younger friends online, but a lot of the bad opinions that I see are just really young people online that just don't quite know what they're talking about yet. And it's easy for me to say that because, like, I didn't have Twitter when I was like 16, 17. Thank God, because I would have a lot of really bad opinions out there. Yeah. And I think I do think it's good. I think a lot of younger people are getting into the religious stuff really young because they're searching for something. And I think that's awesome. But I think with that comes them kind of just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks and getting into arguments online that just don't make sense. And I think the Lutheran Mary and like versus like the Catholics thing is one of those things, because a lot of the people I've seen arguing are super young online, just going back and forth in their little factions
The
arguing.
Orthodox solved this when they have a rule. If you're trying to join the Orthodox Church, they ask you not to participate in any kind of debate or theological discussion because they don't want you representing the church poorly. Like that's a rule they have if you want to join the church. Before you can join fully, you're not allowed to do any debates until you're actually a member of the church. That's a policy that I like in more places. Like if libertarians can have that, then hey, you can't argue with people till you at least finish enacting the state.
Yeah.
That'd probably be a good policy.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, that's an example of gatekeeping, and I think a lot of churches could do well to do some gatekeeping too. I know I will say though, the Catholics and the Orthodox people that I've met online genuinely seem to be really good at, for the most part, gatekeeping people that clearly don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Or are new and maybe need to learn. I have a friend, Colton. You might know Colton. Colton Anderson on Twitter. He's Orthodox and he's really good about, like, if I ask him any questions, he's got sources and he'll tell me about like Orthodox stuff, and he's not like antagonistic about it. He's just like, hey, you should read this so you know what you're talking about, or if you're interested, here's a link and stuff. And that's good. I think I see a lot of Catholics do that too, and I think that's good because it's a form of gatekeeping, but it's also doing it in a way that's not like offensive. It's just like, hey, you should read this. That's why people make fun of me because they're like, all you do is recommend books. Why don't you just explain it? And I go, because people were trying to explain it to me, and me personally, I am a person, I need to read it myself and research stuff for myself. Otherwise, you can talk to me till you're blue in the face. I'm still not going to understand, actually, because I haven't gone through it myself in my mind. So that's why I like to recommend that people actually read for themselves. It's not because I'm like, you should read a book and then like a sassy, like morally superior way. It's just like, hey, you should read this book. Like, I think you really like it. Like, more like that.
I think I spend most of my time on Twitter linking to Mises' books. I do that quite a bit now. It's like,
and the thing is, like, a lot of them are free. A lot of them are free PDFs online. So, I mean, I like physical copies, but a lot of the stuff I link to people, I'm like, there's a free PDF of this. Just read it. Like, just take your time. And
Against the Left by Lou Walker is free and only 140 pages. You can read it over your lunch break if you're a speed reader.
And it's
slightly faster
so
than
good.
It's
I have a signed copy.
Oh, you lucky. The only books I have, like, I have a bunch of signed books I don't care about. Like, I got Sean Hannity and Ben Shapiro books that are signed.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's cringe. But I do have old hardcover of Ethics of Liberty signed by Murray Rothbard. So I do have one nice one. I didn't even know it was signed when I bought it. I bought it used at these books, so open it up. I'm like, oh, this is mine now.
That's
$5 for a signed copy? Hell yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I think that'll help a lot. And I mean, Hoppe he's got like a quote from an interview where he's like, he's asked what he thinks the problem is between like the think tank, like activist libertarians versus, people that actually read things and stuff. And he just straight up says, he's like, honestly, most of the problem is people just don't read much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they get a few slogans like taxation is theft and the Fed, live and let live, and that's it. And those are the people, when right-wing or left-wing people approach them and say, well, what's your solution for this? They don't know.
Yeah.
Because they don't know anything. It's just a label that makes them feel edgy online. And that's why so many people say, oh, you're a libertarian now, but just wait a few years. You'll be just a straight up conservative Republican. You'll grow out of it. And it's like, no, because I actually know what I'm talking about. I appreciate your perspective, but I also know what I'm talking about. And you need to come my way, not the other way around.
Yeah. So Jacob asked me to do this because I probably got some Hoppy in the chat. Most of you probably blocked him, so I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't seen this yet. He wants to have a Hoppy on his podcast to explain to him why echo chambers, gatekeeping, and right-wing strategies are better than, libertarian Mises Caucus stuff. He posted about it a while ago, and granted, every Hoppian's probably blocked him, so he's not going to get a good guess. But
yeah, I think I blocked him too. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't look. If he wasn't in my group chat, I probably would have blocked him too.
And it's not. I do not, and not blocking because I think he's a bad person. I think, like I talked about earlier, I think he's where I was like a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
that's all. I'd love to explain it to him. He can email me. I have a website, kenziepluff.com, if he wants to email me. I'd love to go on. And he mentioned he wanted to have me on. I'd love to go on and talk about it. Now, I will say, I actually might not be the best person. Gatekeeping, I can talk about all day. But when it comes to the strategy type thing, honestly, that's something I'm really new about. Like this year, I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to register as Republican because I don't have to in my state. But I definitely think there's nothing. I was never one of those cringy ANCAPs. It was like, if you vote, you're a slave. Was never me.
I hate those people.
I hate it. They're usually agorists, which I usually don't get along with anyway. But
The agorists are weird. Like I love the strategy. I love counter economics. Conkin is fun to read. But the agorists get so like autistically OCD about like, well, actually, if you vote, you're not a real agorist.
they remind me
so
a lot of when I first joined the Liberty movement, and it was like in Young Americans for Liberty. I kept coming into contact with these really annoying people who were libertarian, and I couldn't quite understand like why they had a problem with me being Christian and libertarian and all this. And then somebody gave me Atlas Shrugged and was like, read this. And I was like, what is this? And they said, oh, well, you know, they're objectivists, Ayn Rand. And like, I started looking into it, and I realized it was objectivists that were being pissy with me because they generally don't like Christians, which I found out is actually like an Ayn Rand thing herself. She really was not a big fan.
I don't know if you heard this or not, but Murray Rothbard has a story about their dinner with Ayn Rand, and she asked his wife to repudiate Christ.
Yeah.
And she said no. And she asked Rothbard, repudiate your wife. He paused, looked at his wife, and like, let's get out of here. This bitch is crazy. And just walked out of the room. I'm like, yes, I love Rand.
Yeah.
I like objectivism. I'm trying to get you one book on the podcast, but good. I'm a Catholic anarchist. There's no way he's coming on my show. It's not gonna happen. Look at me and go, you long-haired fucking hippie. And stay away.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's a useful thing. I think even agorism, like I don't like agorism. I most agorists are just leftist and very just the strategy is good, but it's like, okay, I don't need to call myself an agorist or read a book to do that. Just do it. Like my husband says he follows the drama when I'm talking about it, and he's like, every time I do something stupid, like I'll forget to put my seatbelt on, or like I'll almost run through a red light, like it'll be turning yellow and it'll be red. He'll go, oh, we're doing agorism right now. This is what we're doing. It's like an ongoing joke in my household. Like when we do something kind of vaguely illegal, but like no one caught us, like that sort of thing. There was a person going around putting seeds in people's mailboxes a little bit ago, which technically you're not supposed to do. And my husband was like, oh, they think there's some kind of agorist putting seeds in people's mailboxes. And that made me laugh. So there are some really good ones. I tend to like Jose.
Jose is great.
Jose over on Twitter. He's great. I still think he's a hoppy and he just needs to come this way, but come on over, buddy.
He's him and I are doing a live reading of Conkin's Agorist Prime, what's been a lot of fun. He's
yeah.
I wanted to get into it because you and I both commented on Joshua Smith's thing about Brandy Love and
yes,
and
I almost forgot about that. That was, I think, last week, wasn't it?
Well, that's why I ended up having to block Stefan Kinsella, which I don't like doing because he's been on my podcast twice. He's like he likes Hoppa, but he was so autistic in the argument. I'm like, I'm not dealing with this, and I blocked him.
He's very weird on social media. I completely respect him, and his intellectual property stuff is just like there's no comparison. Like he's the best person on it. It's not even close. Which is something I didn't hardly know anything about until I read his stuff. Like that, his stuff like just completely explained it to me. Like it's great. But I feel like Bob Murphy and like Tom Woods, they're pretty good at social media. Like they're kind of funny. But I don't know. Kinsella, sometimes I'll just see him argue with people and be like, man, someone just needs to explain to you how Twitter works. It's because I think he just can't handle it. Not because he's not intelligent and doesn't know what he's talking about. I just think sometimes he doesn't understand where people are coming from and takes things the wrong way. And I think that's where most of it comes from. But
I had him on a podcast to do Explain to Me Like I'm 5 and Intellectual Property.
Oh, cool.
A lot of fun. Great podcast. But the Twitter debate was so like, I was trying to explain to him why I think it's a bad idea to take a porn star and have it promote liberty. And I made an analogy to drug addicts promoting liberty. And he's like, would you rather drug addicts be statists or Keynesians? I'm like, no, Steph, I want them not to be drug addicts.
Right. I just want them to be good people.
He got really autistic about that because it's like, that's not what we're in the business of doing. I'm like, I thought we care about people's well-being.
Yeah, I got into that kind of with Jacob a little bit. And I was probably a little bit more, I'm kind of abrasive on Twitter. I was probably a little more harsh than I should have been. But I was like, who are you talking to? Who's putting these ideas in your head? Stop talking to leftists. You're associating with them too much. They're putting these ideas in your head. I was like, you're Christian.
On podcast. handle left anarchist on his podcast. I'm not even gonna watch it. I'm not even like. It's gonna be cringe. I know it's cringe. I'm not even.
Yeah,
Big up, I love you, brother, but
yeah.
the left is. He'll say something in the group chat, get everyone in the group chat arguing, and then leave. And I'm like, you fucking
He just
subverted
dips
us.
out.
You subverted the group chat, Jacob.
Oh my god, he's a troll. He's actually an elaborate troll, and we just don't.
If he's a
know
troll,
it.
he's a fucking great troll.
He should be crowned if that's the case. No, it was kind of like the conversation I was having with him to get back to the Joshua Smith thing was kind of the same thing. Like, also just like I watched I was trying to find the screenshots of the tweet, but I think she might have deleted them. But this was back when I had my big Twitter account. I watched her get attacked by Con Inc. people, which honestly surprised me. That was one of the times I was like, you go Con Inc. people. That's right. You draw that line in the sand. If you don't want that, don't allow that. They were gatekeeping. That's what they were doing. And she didn't like it. But guess what? Most people that gate kept, they don't like it. But you have to do it regardless. Otherwise you end up with, Lady Maga and things like that at TPUSA conferences, which look how quickly TPUSA and that kind of stuff got subverted. I mean, I know a lot of people think they're controlled opposition anyway. We could argue that another time, but I mean, look, they got subverted. Now it's, I don't know. Are you familiar with John Doyle at all? Like his stuff?
He needs to eat Hopper. That's my view of John Doyle.
I DM'd him on Instagram. He's probably looking at he's a paleocon. He probably looked at my Instagram, my cosplays, and was like, who's this, e-girl? I'm not listening to her. So, but he has a phrase. He had a really good video about boomer arguments and how much he hates them. And he said he calls it George Floyd conservatism. And he's like, just wait 10 years, the conservatives are just going to be saying that sort of stuff. And that's what's going to happen if you don't gatekeep people like that, though. Like, I know it sucks, but messengers, like who you're like getting back to the Joshua Smith thing, whoever your messenger is, that matters.
Mm-hmm.
It does. If you have somebody, even that's well-meaning, that completely aligns with you, but there's a joke on the internet. Michael Malice says, most libertarians are 11 out of 10 on the autism scale. And if you have somebody that might be super, super smart, we have a lot of people that write very intellectual, well thought out arguments, but you get them in front of people and they freeze up and they come off as really awkward and it just doesn't come off well. If you can have people behind the scenes being intellectuals and people for the hopping.org staff. That's Taylor. Shout out to Taylor. He's our people person. He's really good at talking to people in a way that he just comes off like a regular person just talking about hoppy and ideas. And that's what you need with libertarian stuff. You have to have him on.
Explain to me like I'm 5 how to be a regular person.
Seriously, we have joked that he needs to do a lecture series for libertarians on how to just be a normal human. Because
at a Mises U event, Malice gave a lecture that was never recorded.
Oh, that's great.
A Michael Malice lecture on how to be a normal person, be incredibly hopeful right now.
Yeah. Oh, I think I was there. I think 2018. I think that's when Malice was there. I think that was when I was there because he was. I remember he was talking about. That's when he said most libertarians are an 11 out of the 10. Here's what you should do. Here's how to not come across as a weirdo. And I do think like Michael Malice does come across as like he's very smart, but he's not like autistic about it. Like he just is really fast in conversation, knows what he's talking about, but he doesn't come off as like a super autistic person, which if you were like reading things that he wrote, you might think, oh, this guy's, awkward and things like that, but he's really not. Those are the kind of people we need, not super autistic people or porn stars.
It got a few laughs, but I jokingly said it's like if Josh was really concerned with making sure porn stars, porn addicts read Rossbard, put your podcast on Pornhub. I mean,
yeah, I saw you say that. I mean, legitimately, like more people will probably come across it.
I have a joke a while ago I made that's like I'm gonna upload all my religious podcasts to Pornhub. All my anti-porn podcasts are going on Pornhub.
I saw your conversation, and that's why I jumped in because he said something about, and I love I do think Joshua Smith does good work, so I know you do too. So nobody go bully him. He's great, and I went on his podcast recently too, but I jumped in because I saw him say, well, we need to be in different subcultures. And I do agree with that. But I think we came to the same conclusion is, okay, but if you want to infiltrate a subculture, like Eric July does comics, for example, you need to make sure that, one, the people in that are even open to those ideas at all.
Mm-hmm.
And two, you have to make sure it's in line with your actual values, which I think was your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It would be great, I guess, in a way, if somehow a porn star, I don't know how they would do it, would spread that to a bunch of people. Obviously, a lot of people have porn addictions. If that was going to happen, it'd probably be a great way to get it out. Though I don't know how many people actually care what those people say.
That
It's
was
kind of
another
like,
point I made. It's like, who cares about the political views of your porn star?
no, you're not watching them for their political views. And
No.
that's why, like, even me, I do combine my hobby and politics, but I do have a cosplay page that is just my costumes, because I also understand, even though I'm not leftist, people sometimes just want to get away from that sort of thing. They don't care.
My
So you
favorite
have to
Sobison
you have
tweet
to feel it out.
was he put out a tweet saying he wanted to do some fantasy football league among the people on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
And Sane Hazel, who I also love and respect, he's great, said, wouldn't it be better to have go inside other groups and bring liberty to those groups? And so responding was saying, that's how you make people hate libertarians.
yeah.
It's the left did it with sports. Every ESPN is
Yes.
basically a CNN. That's how they ruin
It's
sports.
so
You don't want to do
annoying.
the same thing.
Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. You just, like I said, this goes back to the being a normal person thing. You
Mm.
want to be a normal person, and if you're at a bar watching a football game with a beer, and a guy goes, "Hey, did you see what that guy said? What'd you think about that?" That's different. But
Yeah.
you don't break the door down like you're the Kool-Aid man and be like, "Who wants to know about libertarianism, fantasy football people?" It's like,
Yeah.
no, a lot of the sports talk, football talking heads are all leftists, and it's so annoying. I just want to know your take on this specific player's performance. I don't care if you let your wife bang other people behind closed doors, okay? Like, you really shouldn't do that, but that's what you're coming off like. Whatever, don't talk about that, bro. Like, I just want to know who's going to win the game next Sunday. Like, that's it. Like, that's all I care about. So, yeah, if you're going to infiltrate a subculture, one, it works a lot better if you are a person that's already established in it. Like, I cosplayed before I ever found libertarianism. Not much longer, basically the same year, but I had already made friends and stuff and things like that. You can't just be like, and Eric's been accused of this, Eric July, like, oh, well, you don't know anything about comics, you're just grifting. And it's like, no, he's been in, it's insane. First of all, it's always people that don't know him at all. But it's usually leftists too. Right-wing people don't have a problem with it because they're like, oh, thank God, a non-crazy person. Yes, please save us. You have to be someone who's respected in those circles and kind of work your way up. I have people message me all the time now that I have the little bit of following that I have. But it is something, say, I agree with you and that sort of thing. That's what you need. You can't just bust your way in and be like, okay, listen to me. It goes back to the building influence thing and actually being a leader, somebody people want to listen to. Nobody wants to listen to you just autistically rant about, the Federal Reserve. It's just,
well, see, I'm homeschooled, and all my group of homeschool people are definitely just that. Like, they're all conservatives, but like I was at a graduation party, all homeschoolers.
Yeah.
And this is why that's my like becoming an anarchist thing. And I was talking to one person about politics, and I mentioned I'm an anarchist, and this dude literally paused, walked away, grabbed more people, came back and said, he's an anarchist, he's wrong. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Here's why. We spent the rest of the day sitting around this giant table outside, and I argued with all of them. And a favorite moment happened is one guy went, oh, you're against the state doing things? What about when I got one of Jim Crow laws? And I'm like, you mean laws that they made in the first place? He started basically stimming. He just like, he just stim. It was so weird.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I think there's a right way, going back to the strategy thing. I think there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. I do the social media for the most part for the hopin.org guys. And I do a lot of the vaporwave and like edits, like the Hopawave edits, and people really like those. And it's a super easy strategy. It's not in your face. It's just cool memes with nice music behind it. It's a popular aesthetic right now. Obviously, you're into the vaporwave aesthetic too.
Very much so.
And it's in trend right now, and it's a way to just get the quotes out there, and people just read them as they listen to music, and that's it. And it puts a little seed in their brain. That's it. You don't necessarily need to go in like, if you can argue with people and convince them, that's great. But if you can do a little subversion of your own, that's the thing. Like, we can do it too. We can subvert people too, and get people to and right-wing people to start thinking about these things and come our way on things.
Isn't that what Eric July basically did at the Blaze?
Yeah, seriously. And I know it's been so funny. My new goal, he will probably not see this if he does. I want to get Eric July to start calling himself right wing. I know he likes to be like, I'm the ANCAP at the Blaze. You can still be the ANCAP at the Blaze and be right wing, because you are. I know you are. I know you agree with me. Like, he's really good on all this stuff. I know he's read Rothbard and Hoppe and all those guys and knows economics, but it's like, you're right wing. Just say it. Just come our way.
He was on the news and Why It Matters, and it was Eric July, Sad Panther, and John Doyle. It was great because John Doyle was just first of the debate with Austin Peterson, and John Doyle was trying to like basically take a dump on libertarians.
Yeah.
He's a libertarian on property rights, and Eric's like piped up and went after like a little rant, and John Doyle just shut the fuck up. It was so satisfying to see it, because
when you come into contact with somebody, and this is why it's important to actually not just have platitudes, to know what you're talking about, because when you have right wingers, and I really enjoy John Doyle's content. I used to follow him on Twitter. I think he got kicked off even before I did. And I kind of fell off. And then I found his YouTube channel again. And I've been watching his content as he uploads. He is really good on a lot of things. He just, like a lot of people, thinks libertarianism is cringe. But when he encounters someone like Eric July, or I think, like, just read Hoppe, bro. Like, he's essentially like, if he could just come a little bit on our way on economics, like, he's essentially Hoppian, like culturally conservative, all those sorts of things. Paleocon and paleo libertarian, I don't think are as far away as people think they are.
Absolutely.
So,
who else was it? It was Eliza Safer, I think was his name. The guy talking about how communists can't be allowed to.
Yes, I'm like, yes, Elijah, let's go. And I have a friend who like has his number and is really good friends with him. And I almost texted her. I was like, listen, you need to do this for me. And she's not really into politics anymore. She was. I was like, listen, I know you're not into politics, but I know you have this man's number. You just text him this Democracy, the God That Failed PDF. I'll send you $5. Okay. Just slide it under the table there. You do this for me. Because he's got a huge platform. And I've definitely seen I think he's shifted a lot. Yeah, he has shifted, I think, from just like a milquetoast person, and I love his content, so I'm not trying to be offensive. Like, slightly offensive. I might be slightly offensive there, but he shifted a lot. And I think these past 2 years, what's been happening has shifted a lot of people, and a lot of people on the right for the better. I think they're coming our way. And I think this is like the easiest time, more than ever, in my opinion, to start having real conversations with people and getting right wingers to come our way, or just like people that are just mainstream conservatives to come our way. And that's why I really didn't like when it comes to the Kyle thing, I did not like libertarians being like, well, he's a thin blue line guy. I'm like, first of all, he was a literal child. Like, he was 17. Okay. Like, come on. Think of all the cringy. Think of the cringy ideals that you held at 17, first of all. And how is that, like, that's what you're going to bring up? Optically, you are choosing to bring that up instead of having real conversations about self-defense with people that need to be had. You're going to argue, well, he liked his cops. So it's like, shut up.
Like, the conservatives now, like, it's tricky. Like, I keep having to tell people this on Twitter. It's like the conservatives you deal with online that read book, and the conservatives of 10 years ago are not the conservative movement right now. These are not they're not the same group. You don't get it. Like, even my boomer grandpa, who still figured out YouTube to watch Bill O'Reilly.
Oh my gosh.
He figured out how to work YouTube so he can
that's kind of adorable, though. Like, he was like, I need to watch my Bill O'Reilly.
He's good. He hates Catholics too. He
Oh
hates
my
Castle but
gosh.
loves Bill O'Reilly and just ignores all of that part. I love my grandpa to death. He's great. Even he's just like, the election was all rigged and we can't trust democracy. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, like
You
I
get a
said,
vote maybe 2 more times in your life. I'm gonna get it.
my in-laws, they were like Fox News people, and they've like almost completely stopped watching Fox News because they've been, I didn't know this because I don't watch Fox News, but they've been, unless it's like a Tucker clip on the internet, then I'll watch it, which I don't know how he's still there, but Godspeed to him.
I don't think it's gonna last long.
I with the way things are going, I hope that he does, because he reaches a lot of people, and maybe the I think honestly, I think the ratings are the thing that's keeping Tucker on, because like their ratings have dropped a lot over like the mandate stuff, and they've been really pro jab, I think, on Fox News too, which is ridiculous. But anyways, my boomer con in-laws, who are Fox News Republicans, like I said, they're like having real conversations about democracy. And actually my mother-in-law, back when my husband and I first started dating, was the first person. She's given me 2 books over the years. One of them was a book about Mao, which was terrifying. It was like basically my first introduction to communism, which was probably good. Like, just slap me upside the face with it, I guess. And then she gave me The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is crazy that like a conservative is like reading something like that, but really, really good stuff, really interesting. So I think there's a lot of people that are very open to the ideas, but we got to do some triage. We've got to decide who's worth it and who's not. Stop casting a wide net. Decide, actually learn the difference between left and right. And decide who, because the other reason why that's important is because if you don't understand that, it's just a safety thing too. Like, you could legitimately ally with some legitimately dangerous people.
Yeah.
It's not just haha hee hee, we're Twitter friends.
Bottom unity is for bottoms and people who want to get killed.
Thank you. Yes, like it's seriously, especially the way we're going down right now, it's going to get real. It's going to get more real than it's been, if that is even conceivable for people. And if it's going to do that, you don't want to be allying with people that don't have your back, that are going to turn on you if like a tweet from 10 years ago is dug out.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Like, I really should delete my Facebook. I really should this way. I need to purge that. I was a boomer con at 14. I need to boot.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, Trump trying to build the wall, baby.
How old are you?
23.
Okay, I'm
probably like 15, 16, 17. I don't know. I was really like, my first book I ever read was Sean Hannity's War on Terrorism book.
Oh my
like I was at a park and they had one of those leave a book, take a book, and I just stole that book. I'm like, this is my book now. So I watched Bonanza, Sean Hannity, and Bill O'Reilly with my grandpa every night. That was my routine.
Oh my goodness.
So I was a Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity guy to like Hannity, Shapiro, Malice. That was my list. That's how I went.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Always right wing though, so that's something.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and I think a lot of people, especially at least in my circles, they came from like the Fox News, like maybe neocon, which obviously isn't actually right wing, but I think even that's a better foundation, because once you realize that you're actually arguing for the people that you think or thought that you didn't like, then the switch flips. And I think that's why a lot of really good libertarians came from like neoconservatism, because at some point the switch got flipped for them and the light bulb came on and they thought, oh, wait a minute. I'm not actually helping anyone here. This is not good. This is not the way I want to go. So,
well, we've gone for about an hour. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Given most of the audience, people listening to this, are already right-wing, Hopper type people.
Yeah.
What are some books you recommend that aren't just Democracy the God That Failed?
Sure. Yeah. Something that I've been recommending, and I've done a reading of the first like third of it on my channel. I need to read the rest of it.
Can I make a guess?
Yeah. Yep. There it is. I think getting libertarianism right, because as much as I really do love Democracy the God That Failed, for a lot of people, if you're a person who hasn't really actually read a lot of like libertarian theory or anything like that, like let's say you've just read like Anatomy of the State or listened to it, which is really short. Like I read it in like an hour and a half on a live stream on my channel. it's kind of different reading Anatomy of the State versus like something like Democracy, the God That Failed, that's going to talk about like monarchy versus democracy and all this like big stuff. Your brain might melt a little bit. So in my opinion, getting libertarianism right is one, it's fairly short. It's available online. You don't have to buy it. There's a free PDF.
118 pages.
Yeah, it's fairly short. And it's just a really good, it's also just a good way to kind of almost filter yourself. Like if you can read that and you agree with all or most of what is said in that book, then welcome. Like it's just a really good filter. If you read that and you're pissed off and you're like, this is mumbo jumbo, I don't like any of this, this isn't libertarianism, then well, there you go. You just filtered yourself. But at least you learned something along the way, and maybe you'll start calling yourself something else. But yeah, that's a really, really good one. Also the collection, the Irrepressible Rothbard that you mentioned earlier that I know you got, that's really, really good as well.
I forgot to mention, the Lou Rockwell stream in December is going to be you, Stratty, Buck, Jared, and I always forget who it is. Taylor? I think it's
Taylor, yeah. I think Taylor's invited as well, yeah.
Awesome. It's going to be everyone listening, get ready for that because it's going to be a giant Lou Rockwell respect stream.
It's going to be awesome.
I want to find out however long the Fakotarians bullshit stream was. We're going to go a little bit longer than that.
Listen, I'm ready. I'm ready because he deserves it. And I do think I love Jeff Dice. I love Tho Bishop, but I obviously love Rothbard and Hoppe, but I think even in libertarian circles, I think Lou Rockwell is one of the most underrated people who has done so much for all of us. And absolutely. I'm fortunate enough, I got to thank him in person at Mises University for that. But like he's just a great person and has done so much for, unironically, for the liberty movement. And I don't know where I probably wouldn't be where I am politically. Or even,
Institute, I don't know what any of us would be.
Yeah, like, I really don't. People are like asking me on my streams, like, "Are you sponsored?" And I'm like, "I'm not sponsored by them. No." They're just so. It's Mises.org is just an invaluable resource. And anybody associated with that is probably cool with me.
I went through the list of people, like the staff and like senior everyone. I'm like, everyone, yeah, no, I got no problems. I need these people. Everyone is cool.
Yeah, they're all great. They're all great. They've all done a lot, and they all have are much smarter than I am, obviously, and have thought through all this stuff. And I've learned a lot from them. So I'm very, very, very fortunate that they exist. But
wonderful. Well, where can people find you at?
You can find me at my Twitter handle on the screen there, Kenzie Tuff. Or if you want to find everything, you can just go to Kenzie Puff with a P instead of a T there.com. I actually just have a website. I've got a blog up. And all my social media is linked there as well. So you can find me there.
Wonderful. Well, guys, another episode of Faith, Liberty, and Praxis. Read more books.